It's been a couple weeks, but we've had lots going on. So
But how many we just started, but
yeah, for the replay.
yeah, for the replay people.
Yep. So yeah, once we get a few people here for the live stream, we'll be answering viewer questions and that kind of stuff. Until we get people in the room, we can kind of go around and show what's been going on for the past couple weeks. I know that I missed a week due to being in California working on our 61 MGA land speed car. And then I got home and then it was Dom's spring break. So he was out of town for that. So just been a couple weeks, but lots has been going on. So back in the shop, getting stuff done. And today's not the first, but tomorrow is the first. So I went ahead and got this month's schedule all written out for the most part. I still have to figure out how I want to plan everything a little bit more and do the last week of April. And just like always, I leave the bottom here open for stuff that comes in like frame rail bending, small jobs, little stuff like that, so I can fill that out on the bottom. But after this month, May and June are going to be extremely, extremely busy. In May, I have Noah Norwood's coming into town. We're doing a class at Bailey Industrial up in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Then I have to drive out to El Mirage for the season opener, and we're going to race the MGA there. I've got a class. Yeah, what is that order? Noah's coming into town, Bailey. Then I have a welding class, and then that Sunday I leave to drive to California for El Mirage, and I race for a week, and then a week home.
Very busy.
Yeah, very busy. And then it'll be June, and then it's all catch up and prepare for Bonneville. So the only exciting part about that is when I come home from El Mirage, the MGA will be here instead of out in California. So it'll be a little bit easier to work on, so I'm not flying out to SoCal to spend a few days doing race prep. So hopefully we can get everything ready for the Salt.
Also, we changed to horizontal. You can only do it if you just go live and you don't schedule. So hopefully everyone who's been saying go horizontal enjoys this.
Yep, and we'll have to try this out and see what happens versus scheduling and not scheduling. We like to do the scheduling that way people know that we're going to be live and they can prepare for that and not be surprised. I know in the past, I think when we first started, nothing was scheduled and a lot of people missed it because they didn't know ahead of time. So we'll see how it goes, see if you guys like the horizontal versus vertical and scheduled versus not. And we'll kind of go from there. So do we have anybody in with us, or is it just...
We had 12 people. And
nice.
Phil, hold on. Phil says, just got home from Melsham class. Loved it. It was awesome to learn everything you taught us. And super cool to run the Pettingale. Thank you.
Yep, yeah, so I had a metal shaping class here Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And today is Monday for our Monday lives. So Phil was here, and Phil is the class winner from the giveaway. So he's going to take another class later on this year. We don't know if it's going to be a welding class or he's going to roll that towards a more advanced class in the future. But he was here, and it was a really good time. And here's the Pettingill that he mentioned. So in the metal shaping classes, we do everything from patterns, hand tool work, and everybody gets to run the hammers if they want. So it was really good that he was here. I'm glad you had a good time, and it was awesome working with everybody in the class. Maybe Mike will chime in too if he's home or close, because he usually watches our live events, and he was here as well.
It's good. Fabit's here.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep. Glad you found it, especially being unscheduled. Yeah. Do you have another one? Anything else?
No, nothing.
All right. So not a ton changed in the shop. I was kind of thinking about that while I was sitting in the airports at California. I get that comment a lot of nothing ever seems to change in the shop. It's always little stuff. So I did the math, and with the large projects in the shop, dividing that up to 40 hours a week, that through a 12-month period, the way I break everything up, that only gives me about 300 hours per year to work on one project. So that's one of the reasons why it seems like a lot of stuff doesn't move as fast as some people think, especially when a lot of these projects are multiple thousands of hours. So things just take a little bit longer, and like I said, the past couple weeks, I've been traveling, Dom's been traveling. I did a bunch of frame rails last week, so that was in here and getting ready for the class. So not a ton's changed. So this week, I have to do a Model A coupe roof insert. So I got it all trimmed out and laid out. This has been on hold because the shear's been down. So my old 1940s Pexto power shear, I thought the motor had wrapped out. So I ordered a new motor from my buddy Chris. That came in, we put it on, we were getting the same results. So then I thought it was the phase converter. So I was running cords from the other phase converter across the shop, still getting the same results. Checked all the wires, wiring was good. I checked the fuses inside our kill switch. I just went ahead and replaced those and we were still getting the same results. So I couldn't really figure it out. I put a 110 VFD on it and everything worked. But the 110 to 3-phase VFD couldn't keep up with the big flywheel. So I had another kill switch or master disconnect and I put it on just to see what would happen and that fixed it. So apparently I've been dealing with 4 weeks of the shear being down and something had just went bad in the disconnect switch. So that's a bummer, but that's why I'm not an electrician. And I never would have thought the switch itself went bad. I figured it just would have been the fuses inside or something else. But finally got it figured out, and that just kind of put some other sheet metal stuff on hold because I didn't expect it to take that long to get fixed.
Fabit, I wore a short I got from you in October and wanted to wear it to a big car show in Cleveland. Only washed it one time, and your logo is cracking. Just wanted to let you know.
Huh. We'll have to look into that. I know since COVID, a lot of the normal suppliers for that screen printing ink and that kind of stuff has changed, but the manufacturers can't get the same chemicals they were using. I'll ask my printer and see if anything's changed on his end, because we definitely want to keep the t-shirts and that stuff the highest quality we can. So thanks for the heads up, and we'll definitely look into that. Yep, so yeah, one thing with the two bender, I don't know if we mentioned making the custom tooling to do tighter distances between bend radii.
Yeah, we have.
So I got our first test piece in. We're still going to modify it a little bit. I can't remember if we were talking about modifying it last time. But I was able to successfully do some parts I needed. Here were the test bends. They actually shipped out today. But I'm able to shrink that up to, I think it's 3 3/4 straight in between bend tangents, where before it was 8 inches. So that works, but the problem is it has to be that offset. We can't use that tool to do, say, a 4. So that's going to be a little bit different, and those were pretty much made just for this project. But it's interesting to do that prototyping and see what works and what doesn't. So always learn something, especially in mandrel bending. It's kind of a new thing to me, making our own tooling and getting things to work out how we want. Got a question?
Someone else said, it's hard, you can't see the comments, but they said that their shirt got it before COVID and it's still holding up to the Kentucky sun.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, that's the only thing I've noticed, because I'm getting the same thing from shirts that I've bought from other people, is shirts that I got from the same company pre-COVID are still in good shape, while post-COVID, just the ink isn't holding up nearly as good. So I think a couple weeks ago we were talking about ordering all the AN lines for the white car, and most of those came in. So,
quick question. I would like to make some slapper hammers out of old leaf springs. Shape's the only thing. Shapes are one thing. Does it matter? Hold on. I wonder if I can see the comments somehow. Top chat. There we go.
all right, what was the question again? It was about making a slapper out of a leaf spring.
Here we go. Live chat. There we go. All right, let's fix it. Quick question. I would like to make some slapper hammers out of old leaf springs. Shape are one thing. shape are one thing. Does it matter?
I don't really understand the way it's written, but you can make them out of leaf springs, no problem. You just don't want anything with a real aggressive bow to it. You're probably going to have to heat it up to bend it and then heat treat and temper it to get them to work and not crack. So you'll have to do some research on what the leaf spring material is and heat treat that accordingly.
This is from Mike Daniels. Hello, Mike and Dom. Yes, I am watching this.
Cool. Yeah, wasn't sure if you were back home yet or if you were still driving.
The class was great. Learned a lot more. If anyone wants to take a class, it's very informative. Had a good time.
Yeah, thanks, and glad you guys came. And it's kind of interesting that I think you and Phil both mentioned that you saw each other in the comment sections, and then you got to meet here at the class. So that's always kind of cool to bring the community together. And yeah, so a lot of the Fragola AN fittings are in. So we got piles of those. Water hoses. I got rolls of fuel line. I had to, when I was out in California working on the MGA, since it's been sitting for so long, some of the hoses had started to dry rot, and I found a couple leaks, so I just went ahead and bought new rolls of -6 and -8 black, so I could get any leaks fixed when we go to the track that I can, not be surprised. So got that done. I went ahead, we're having some issues with the GT, kind of intermittent running issues and popping and cracking. So I took the carburetor apart, cleaned everything up, put some new power valves and accelerator pumps in, looked for anything, and rejetted the carbs. And now it's been rainy, so I can't take it out and actually test anything. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But yeah, got those things going on. And yeah, any more questions?
Does the weight of the slappers matter? That was a question.
Oh, there's the weight of the slappers. Yes and no. The heavier the slapper, the more it's going to do some shaping work, but it'll also tire you out. So I prefer a little bit lighter of a slapper versus a heavier one, but you're going to have to just make one and see if you like it.
Do you ever make parts or brackets by press forming?
I don't do a whole lot of press forming stuff. We talked about that at the class, about 3D printing press forms. It's just not something I do a whole lot because I don't get into a whole bunch of detail work like in floor pans or firewall recesses. When I do that, I just use the Linux and make the appropriate tooling to do that.
Do you hand lay out the measurements on those roof panels, or do you have templates?
I have templates. I used to do it all by hand, and I got really tired of laying it all out every time. So I laid everything out in aluminum, and it's an overall size template, and then it has the grid pattern kind of punched in it as well, and it speeds things up quite a bit. So we've got all of our roof insert patterns. So like this is the Model A that I laid out on the table. The overall size with a little bit of buffer is on there, and then I come through where the grid is, I just punch holes, and then I can put reference marks. But this one's for a 3031 coupe. We have a 32-3 window, 3536 5 window, 3334 5 window, and 3334 3 window. So those are all the templates that I've got made, and it just makes layout a lot easier. And then we'll use the shaping bucks once we get into actually shaping the panels.
So I have right now. I just want to ask another question.
Yeah. The Kirby Roadster was back. Was it here the last time we did it live? I think it was, and we were just finishing up.
Yeah, you did the front end on it.
Yep. Yeah, so we got that all done. It headed back before I went to California. And I finished up the fog light. I didn't do any videos on that, but I made he has a little yellow fog light, and he keeps breaking lenses. So I made a little surround, and we put this real thick mesh in there.
You talked about that.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I saw it. It looked really good.
Yeah, put this mesh in there just to keep the rocks from hitting the glass. So it turned out really good, and I mailed that back to him one day last week. I can't remember what day it was.
Have you ordered a 3D printer yet?
Nope, I don't know enough about it. So I want to get better at doing the 3D modeling and actually be able to 3D model parts. Because I think once I get from being able to 3D model it, I think, what did we say, was like a splicer?
Yeah.
I think splicing it and getting it to print will be much easier than me buying a printer and then not knowing how to 3D model or splice or print.
If you have a CNC plasma table, you can replace a torch with a Sharpie and pattern it out on a DXF.
Yep, I've done stuff like that in the past, but it's changing all of that out and getting it set up. It's not all that it's cracked up to be. Like, I don't want to cut it on the table, so I'd still have to come back and cut it out by hand. But every time I've tried to do that, it's not all that great. So it's just easier to do it by hand with the patterns instead of trying to set it up on the CNC plasma. Because I do have one. I don't talk about it a whole lot because I don't cut a whole lot of parts anymore, just for stuff in-house. But it's tucked over there in the corner.
Yeah, but because you used to make tabs and stuff a lot.
Yeah, and I'm anticipating comments about how I just don't know how to set it up, and that's why it's not easier to do it that way. But that's all right. I mean, I've only been running a CNC plasma table for 15 years, and it just doesn't. I don't find the cost or time savings that valuable.
Well, my uncle's stepdad's father used to run a plasma table, and he's been running for 200 years. So. Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, it doesn't. If I'm using a standard fat Sharpie, I'm sure we're talking about it too much, but like clipping one of these in, yeah, you can get away with that. But I'm not going to lay everything out with a fat Sharpie. Like, all our trim lines and that kind of stuff is going to be a finer line Sharpie, which those really don't like to work. And like, mine doesn't have the self-reading height, so I have to set the height and go from there. And being thin sheet metal, if it's not perfect, just the setup's annoying. Yeah.
So by the time I get it all set up, I can have it laid out.
Okay, we have another question. Saw your buck for the Daytona Coupe. How did you develop the patterns for the stations?
So that is an interesting story. That buck, originally Kyle Yoakum built it, but he found, I'd have to look up all the company names to be super exact, but it's a video game company, and they take original cars, they 3D scan them, scale them down, and they have 3D models for video games. Well, on the back end of that, you can buy those cars in a 3D model for a video game. I think they're a few $100. You just buy the 3D model, and then you can rescale it out based on wheelbase and just blow it back up. And then he sent it to a guy that segmented it using a puzzle making software, segmented it into the vertical stations and had them lasered out. So I don't know the company names, but it just saves a bunch of time at that point because the video game companies have spent all the time and money scanning and surfacing.
Fabit said you were blurry. Is anyone else blurry? I mean,
I don't know.
You look fine.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can go wipe off the camera lens real quick.
I think it's fine. I don't see any smudges on it.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I did just clean it, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe my face just looks like that now.
Yep. Don says, good evening, Mike and Dom.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome back. And sorry it's been a couple weeks, but life got in the way and we're just busy bees.
Seen that CNC table make many awards for our show in Kentucky?
Yep. Yeah, I used to do a lot of cutting, and I mean, we did a lot of parts and a lot of signage and brackets and boxing plates. And now that CNC plasma tables are way more affordable, everybody wanted to fight their way to the bottom with pricing, and I just kind of called it quits with that. And now I just use it for prototyping in-house.
It's just buffering a little. Okay. For the MH19 and reciprocating mode, do you prefer three-quarter square tool or half-inch plate quarters?
Yeah, three-quarter at a minimum, because by the time you take your three-quarter and you put a quarter-inch radius or quarter-inch lead in and lead out on each side, you're only going to have a half-inch in the middle. So if you take your half-inch and you do that, you're not going to have much of a flat surface to put your profile in. So I like three-quarter by three-quarter at a minimum, unless it's something like very simple. But most of the time we would get chatter marks from not having enough contact area if we use the half-inch flat I forget what they call it, like just a 1/2-inch flat stock milled tool holder. So there's even times like on more complicated profiles where I'll use 1 inch wide or 1.5 inch wide solid stock and weld that to a 3/4 stem.
Do you have an example of that?
We might. Because I just have to figure out where it is. I saw it the other day. Yeah, like this one, it's not super complicated, but it was a little bit thicker material, and I wanted to put a little pressure on it. So yeah, I think that's 1.25 inches wide with the 3/4 stem.
You made most of these, or?
Yep. Yeah, there's some that I sent out like these. No, that one. Like that one I cut out on the plasma and bolted and then welded them together. But this one, like this one I sent out and had it done CNC just because it all needed to be the same.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that I wasn't going to get it there. But like this one does, this is a 1935 Miller Ford IndyCar exhaust. So it had to be on point. And then let's see what we got over here. Yeah, like here's one with, it's just more aggressive deep profile and it's out of the thicker material. Yeah, there's another one out of a little bit thicker. And you can see that more aggressive lead in and lead out. So if we did that on thinner material, like here's one on 3/4, you've got that 1/4 inch lead in and lead out. Our flat spot goes from 3/4 wide to a 1/2. So if it was only a 1/2 inch wide to start, we'd not have much of a flat surface of putting that profile in.
How far away are you from most of your customers? And how do you deal with long distance customers, pain, and dealing with them?
So I only have one customer in here that's local. All the other ones are at least 2 or 3 hours away. I kind of like it better. I've got clients all over the country. So what I do is we do detailed work notes every time we work on the car, and it's usually 1 full page per day, and then we send pictures if need be. I invoice through QuickBooks, so I attach our work notes to the invoice, and I send that out, and usually everything is good. I think the big thing is trust with your client is always important, because if they trust you, they don't have nearly as many questions as if they don't trust you. So it's always keeping them on the trust side is very important. But yeah, so it's just, a lot of times I like long distance clients because I know they're not just going to drop in and kind of take me away from what's going on. Plus we're by appointment only. So it's really not bad. It helps me stay focused, and I'm not worried about if people are going to drop in as often.
What kind of fixtures do you use to weld the profiles into the shanks?
They're just really simple setup fixtures. So it's just a block of aluminum, and it's got a 3/4 inch slot milled through it for the stems. So I've got 2. So this one's for like a tighter, where the tooling's not as wide, so it fits better. And then this one, so it's 3/4 this way, and then I just lay the profile here and clamp everything together. Just real simple fixtures.
Okay, thanks. That's interesting. That's on the faraway customers.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, this client is the closest one, and I think he's 30 to 40 minutes. He's on the other side of town. But yeah, most everybody's out of state.
So you're going to be working on, what are you working on next?
I'm going to be back on the convertible this week. So I want to finish that roof insert. That's first thing. I finished up a vintage race car hub this morning. Just had to do some repairs on it and sent it back to Dayton Wire Wheel. So we got that done. I'll get that roof insert, and then we're going to be on the convertible this week. So I'm going to break down where the seams are in this with tape. So I'll lay where all our seams are, get everything laid out, and then I'll pattern everything from this piece, and I'll flip it over, and I can make I'll use the same patterns, but I can mirror the pieces for the other side. So I'm going to try to get all of these pieces patterned, transferred to steel, trimmed, and start shaping them. That way I can get the other side of the quarter in the works. So keep things moving on this because it's been a little bit since I've been on it. And then next week we're going to be back on the Mack truck fenders, try to get them almost done other than the wire edge next week. I had hoped to have them done by the end of this month, which is March, and that's today. So being a little bit behind, like always, they're not going to be done by the end of March, so I'll just do my best to get them as close as I can next week and then just finish up the wire edge.
Do you have a signed or verbal agreement that photos or customer cars will be posted online?
Nope, I don't have any agreement like that. I just ask them if they don't want their car posted, I won't do it. But it's mainly just, I guess they expect it to be posted online unless they say otherwise.
I really want to see a wire edge done using the Pullmax.
Yeah, I don't do the whole thing in the Pullmax. Did we do the video on the wire edge?
Yeah, you did a video on wire edging.
Yeah, it was all by hand, just because the fenders are so big.
Yeah.
So the only difference that I do is I use a tipping set to turn the edge instead of using the tipping tool that I made to do by hand, and then we'll put we'll form the J on the Pullmax. So if I get to something smaller that needs wired edge, we'll definitely do a video on it. Just these fenders are too big.
It was really cool because my friend, he was making parts for his Bronco, and I told him to watch some of your videos. But before that, he put a piece of wire in there and everything.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really neat because I learned wire edging here, and then in real life I saw that.
Nice.
I know someone else wanted to see when you're welding the fenders.
Yep.
How you do, like the inside.
Yep.
So whenever we weld this, we should do that.
Okay. Yeah, and the inside's nothing spectacular. Like I don't dress them, I don't grind the inside because most of them are going to be undercoated, and it's not like there's a bunch of weld hanging down. So we'll post it. It's just not as exciting as I think most people think it is.
What grade panel steel do you use?
So all of the steel is either going to be 18 gauge cold roll or 19 gauge draw quality aluminum killed. I prefer the 19 gauge, but it's getting harder to find and more expensive. So the majority of everything is going to be 18 gauge. Like the Mack truck fenders are 18 gauge cold roll. The roof inserts are 18 gauge cold roll. These quarters are. I haven't had any 19 gauge draw quality in a little over a year. Again, just because it's expensive. When it comes to aluminum body parts, I use 063 3003 H14. So a half hard alloy, easy to shape, pretty durable, and it's not as prone to stress cracks from vibration.
Do you think the Clico holder will be something in your store anytime soon?
Yep. Yeah, we'll talk about that. So that's the bigger one. So this one, I'm hoping. So I'm working with ARS, Awald's Rod Shop, and he's going to put my logo on the new ones, but hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll have these on the site. So yeah, hold your pliers, hold your Clicos, and it's got spots for Clico drill bits. And yeah, there'll be a better picture of this and a little information on the newsletter that comes out tomorrow. But I know he was out of town, and I'm hoping that they're going to be ready to ship in the next week or two. We're going to do them, I think, starting out in black. We might do blue, red, and like a bright green. So we'll see how those go. The price point is going to be less than $40 just for the holder. No Clicos or pliers or drill bits will be included for that. But yeah, sometime in April they'll be live on the store. And when we get them in stock, we'll announce it here, and then there'll be a next month's newsletter as well with a link to check them out.
You sell Clicos though, right?
Yep, I do sell Clicos. I don't sell the pliers, but we do sell this style Clico just for the 1/8 inch. I just haven't found a good deal on quality pliers to carry in the store.
I need rear fenders for a 1947 International half-ton truck. I can't find any.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could make them. They're just not going to be cheap because fenders are very labor intensive, and especially on some of the bigger truck stuff. Uh, if you have a pattern to go on, that'll be a little bit easier than if we have to design a buck based off of pictures. So if you're interested, shoot me an email and we can talk more detail. My email is cornfieldcustoms. Shoot me an email and we can talk about it and see what you got and go from there on it.
What filler do you weld the 3030?
Gmail.com. I always use an 1100 rod when I'm welding aluminum sheet metal panels. It hammers out a little bit easier. It's not as prone to cracking. You will get a little, not discoloration, but if you polish it, the 1100 polishes at a different rate than the 3003. So you'll have a ghost line through it. You can cut strips of the parent material and use it as your filler rod, but you really have to clean it really well to get any contamination off of it. And just through the welding process, you're going to get a little bit of discoloration. I've never been able to get it to where it's completely unnoticeable.
How does someone new that works in the industry price their work?
Pretty much you have to figure out what your time's worth. Take your skill set, your efficiency, and your overhead into account and figure out what a livable wage for your shop is, and kind of go from there. And then don't be afraid to increase your rate. Like as your skills improve and your clientele improve, just don't be afraid to increase that, because you don't want to be working for 15 bucks an hour. But also, if you're pretty green or wet around the ears, you don't want to come in at 150 bucks an hour. So just, you kind of have to take into play a lot of things. Like I said, overhead, skill set, efficiency, and where you're located in the country. You know, if you're in rural Minnesota, you might be able to charge less because your cost of living is less than if you were in Los Angeles. So there's just a lot of variables, and it's tough, but I think newer guys with a decent set of skills, you could be in the $40 to $50 range for maybe the first year as you start to build the business, and then slowly increase from there.
What do you use as a tube bender when you make roll bars?
I have a Bailey RDB 175. Yeah, what is this? Yeah, RDB 175. So it's just a dual cylinder, programmable rotary draw bender. So this is what I do all of the round tube on. I don't mandrel bend any round. So that's pretty much it. It's a little dusty from sitting around.
There's the tag. But
yep, I've bent many a race cars with this thing over the years.
I just laid a weld for the first time Saturday.
Nice.
What advice would you give to someone that's a first timer at welding?
Don't turn into an internet welder. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. Just keep a solid mind and just keep practicing. Too many people think like I've ran a welder once, now I'm the greatest welder on the planet. So don't fall into that category, but just keep practicing. There's always something new to learn, and just keep at it.
No other new comments.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say we're getting a lot of questions in this one. So thank you guys so much for all the questions. The questions really help out, so it's not me just rambling on about stupid stuff, more so than usual. So I do appreciate all the good comments in this one. So yeah, let's keep the comments and questions coming, and we'll keep the live going.
You want to talk about your valve cover you got?
Yeah. So in the back, I have a single overhead cam magnesium valve cover that still has like all the casting sprues on it. And I like it a lot, and I don't want to take the sprues off. So when I was out in California, I was staying at Jeff Kugel's, and his brother Joe is making a lot of 427 sock parts. And we were talking, and he had this blim that's got some imperfections in the casting that he's not able to sell.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to make a valve cover race car. And most guys use, stamped steel Hemi valve cover, small block, big block, whatever. And I thought it'd be really cool to take an aluminum 427 valve cover and make one. So that's kind of my plan for it. It's going to have a full, probably an 1/8-inch aluminum chassis, and I'm working on figuring out what wheels and axles and bearings I want to run in it. I don't even know where any valve cover races are anymore, but I just thought it'd be cool to build one. So.
I've not heard of a valve cover race. Is it like, you know, the people who modify the little radio flyer wagons?
It's kind of like that. So it's like Pinewood Derby cars for Boy Scouts.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the adult version of that.
Okay, yeah, I've made a couple of those.
Yeah. And I mean, I always liked Pinewood Derby stuff. And yeah, I remember going to some car shows as a kid and seeing the valve cover racers, and then that kind of faded out. And hopefully maybe I can help get a resurgence into that.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
That's hard to see, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'd be kind of cool, even if I don't use it, just to have it laying around. And maybe I'll find a race at an event or something, and I'll be the idiot that shows up with a 427 valve cover.
Yeah. So what would this usually come on? I mean, a 427, but...
Yeah. I'm not real up to... I don't know what they would have came in.
Okay.
I mean, they would have been special order high performance engines.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Kugel's dad ran one in some Bonneville cars, and they were just really neat. But I'm guessing you could have ordered a Mustang with one. I mean, it wouldn't have been cheap,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
might have had to pull some strings. But I think you could get them in that, and maybe a Thunderbird. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know a whole lot about cars.
Your other one's really cool because, like you were saying, it still has all the rods on it.
Yeah, we can see if we get service back there and show them. So that one's aluminum, and the one back here we're going to try to show you is cast magnesium.
How's your Daytona? You have one, right?
Yep.
You take it out much?
Not really. It was trapped in the office for like 3 years. I just didn't get a chance to get it out. So I drove it a little bit last year, and then I got the GT, and the GT is way more fun and way cooler. I think I drove it once or twice this year. The wife likes it because it has heat and air conditioning, so it's a little bit more fun to drive with her around, but I like driving the GT a lot better. Yeah, so there's the magnesium 427, and it still, like I said, it still has all the casting sprues from the foundry on it, and I kind of want to leave it like that. So that's why I didn't cut it apart and use it for the valve cover racer.
Another thing. Let's see. I completely own the shop, tools, and property it's on, but no one knows my work. How do I get it out there more?
The best thing is use social media. It's free. You don't have to pay to advertise in magazines or on websites. Just constantly put out high quality work, take pictures of it, use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. All of that stuff is free. So use all the free marketing you can, and that's the best thing I can say. Like, you don't have to go set up and pay to vend at a show. Just take your car to a car show, or take something you're working on to a car show, and just have good, interesting business cards that people won't lose interest in. Make them rememberable, and make your cards to where people want to keep them. So like with ours, we're going to be all over the place back and forth. My old cards were nothing fancy. It was just black with my logo on it. To me, it was very forgettable. And with business cards, if they're plain, you look at them later and you're like, just pitch it.
American Psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I do is I try to put interesting cars that we have built or worked on the cards. So I currently only have 2 versions. Hopefully the lighting's not bad. So there's the red Roadster at Bonneville, and then there's the Indy Roadster at Bonneville. So you want to keep this and pin it to your wall just because it's a really cool picture. And then on the back, it has all of the QR codes for YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, email, and the shop phone number, and just quick and easy. Cornfield Customs, hot rods, race cars, and metal shaping. You know, keep people's interest, but the big thing is make them want to keep your business cards.
Yeah, like Rock Auto. Rock Auto has those magnets.
Yep.
And you look at your fridge, boom, Rock Auto.
Yep. Too many people, like, we used to do like a bigger It was almost like a postcard, and I felt that it got too busy. We were trying to say, well, we do custom bent mandrel frame rails, and we do this, and we do that, and you lose people's interest really quick. So just quick, simple, but memorable.
Would you consider having a shop help in an unpaid apprentice type position, short term, like 2 weeks off from my real job? I can help push a broom or help out with whatever I can observe.
Maybe, maybe not. So that's really kind of tough, because we don't really know each other. So say you wanted to do 2 weeks. I don't know your skill set, your capabilities, your organizational skills, or kind of how you would operate here with me. So like a week to a week and a half of that would be just getting familiar. I'm not completely opposed to the concept because I do like sharing knowledge and helping grow the community. But in a working setting, it's kind of tough because you could be pulling me away from getting stuff done to help you get moving, and it'd be kind of not as beneficial as we would both hope. So again, I'm not opposed to the idea. There's just a lot of variables we would have to take into account and see if it could actually work out.
I'm building a Factory 5 Daytona for a customer right now. Cool
Nice.
car.
Yeah, they're real fun.
Did you ever do fridge magnets?
No, we never did magnets. I just didn't think that the cost was worth it because they're a little bit more, and like I just do stickers instead.
Yeah, you can put a sticker on anything.
Yep.
Is that a stack fuel injection behind you, Mike? If so,
Yep.
What is it for?
So this is it's an original mechanical Hilborn injector for a flathead, and then it had been retrofitted for EFI. So it was on the engine that's in the red car when it was in the Indy Roadster, but in the class we run at Bonneville, we can't have electronic ignition or injection. So I took it off. We're running carburetors right now, and eventually I might un-EFI it and put it back to mechanical. I just haven't gotten to that point yet.
Donkey says sweet.
Sweet.
That's all we have right now.
Yeah.
Would I take in bare metal to show my work or painted to show that work, or do both?
Do either or. Because you have to think, like, whether it's bare metal or a painted car, if you show up and it's a really nice car, you're going to get people that are just going to come up, hey, nice car, man. Who did it? Well, I did. Well, who did your metal work? I did. Who did your paint work? I did, and so on and so forth. So either way, it just depends on what you're trying to get more of. If you want to get finished cars, the painted car is going to get you more attention with people that want either full builds or are looking for body and paint. If you show in bare metal, you're going to get more of the metal clients. So either way is not going to hurt if you do all of that. I usually only show stuff in bare metal, unless it's like a race car that's done. But most of the times, everything's bare metal because that's all I do is the metal work.
We don't really have anything else, but
yeah, it's a little dark and cold in here.
It is. Hopefully it heats up.
I know, it was really nice all weekend, other than we had some a little bit of severe weather come through last night, and I guess it brought a cold front back with it.
Yeah, there's a tornado.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so what are the questions you guys got? Because I think we got about, 15 minutes left?
It's we've been streaming for 43 minutes.
Yep, so we got about 15 minutes left. So get your questions in.
I'm building a 1970 911. I don't have fenders for it. Not even a donor. So I was thinking of making a flexible pattern off one.
Yeah, so the flexible shape patterns, I get a lot of flack for this, but I don't like them. Because the way I shape is not ideal for a flexible shape pattern. And I feel that unless you're going to just use a wheel and a stump to beat the fenders out into somewhat the proper shape, you're going to struggle with a flexible shape pattern. If anything, it would be better if you could find a fiberglass one and use that as your buck. But I think you would struggle a lot if you just went to somebody and said, hey, can I make a flexible shape pattern? And then you went home with this pile of tape all stuck together. It's not going to give you what I feel would be an accurate enough roadmap of a pattern to be able to successfully build parts. And I'm sure I'm going to get all the comments of I just don't understand how they work or whatever, but they just don't work for me. Like, I've tried multiple times, I've worked with people that use them, and it just doesn't work with the way I shape.
Someone asked a question, but they keep deleting it. Can you make a buck off of a picture?
Yeah. So it's really challenging because you have to be good at scaling, and it's not like you just have to take the side shot of a car and scale it wheelbase-wise. That's the easy part. But you have to be able to scale it from the side, scale it from the front, scale it from the top, and scale it from the bottom.
It's like when you're 3D modeling a car.
Yep. You have to be able to see as much of the information. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's not. So I did a car. It was an aluminum body and some fenders, and there were 4 pictures of the car from 1932. So think of how great the pictures were in 1932, and then 4 pictures of the car, and the original is missing. Nobody knows where it was. So that's good and bad, because then we have a little bit of creative freedom, because there's no evidence to say it's not that way. But if you want it to be historically accurate, it can be really challenging. So it can be done, and I know a lot of guys that do it. It's just a real struggle.
If it's fiberglass, won't that make it a little bigger as a buck?
It will make it a little bit bigger, but you're talking 60 thousandths. Like, nobody is going to notice the difference of the fenders being oversized by 60 thousandths. We actually talked about that in the class, and I get flack for that all the time, that you can't use an original fender or original part as the buck because it's going to be oversized. Well, yeah, it's going to be oversized by the material thickness, but it's not going to be oversized in every direction, because you'll make the fender sitting on top, but then you'll still come in and you'll turn all of your edges independently, and then it'll fit the car.
Okay, how do you do that from pictures?
How do you do what from pictures? Scale it?
Yeah. They want to know how you make the buck. Here's what they kept deleting it, but now it's here. Can you make a fender buck from pics and some measures? Okay, and how do you do that from pictures?
Yeah, so like I said, you'd have to scale everything out and get a basic shape, left, right, top view, front view, back view. And then you would pick the center spline, say from the front view, you'd pick your center radius this way and from the side, and that would become, let's go to this one. That would become your center spline. You've got your from the side, and you've got your shape from the top. That would give you your center spline. Then you would come up and you'd take your front shot, and that would give you your front or your back, and that would give you this spline. And then you'd go back to your top view, and that would give you this and this, and then you have to fill in the blanks. You have to kind of use a little bit of creative artistic view and get everything to flow together. That's why it's a real challenge, because you don't have a ton of information based off of pictures, especially with scaling. If it's an old grainy black and white picture and the rim is an 18-inch rim, well, where's the actual edge of the rim if it's a super grainy picture? It can be a real challenge, especially if you're trying to be historically accurate or true to the car. If you're just making it look kind of like it, you can get away with a lot more using pictures. But if you want it to be as close to an exact replica, it's going to be tough.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
That's what we have right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on.
About 10 more minutes.
Yeah? Yeah, we can talk. So when I was in California, I flew out on a Wednesday and went to Brea, California, and worked on the MGA. So we pulled all the parts, all the extra parts and pieces and tools and everything for the car off the shelves, kind of got a rough inventory of what all was there, what we needed to do. Found some issues with the front cover on the transmission. So Kiwi Steve and I got the transmission off to, I don't even remember which transmission shop we took it to. I don't know, we took it to a transmission shop out there. They put a new faceplate on it. I got the call today that that's all done, ready to be picked up. So Kiwi's going to grab that, and then we can put a new Tilton hydraulic slave cylinder on it. So that'll be done. But while I was there, I had to pull the clutch master cylinder was leaking, and one of the brake master cylinders was leaking. So I had to get under the dash, pull all that out. We found new ones, replaced those. And this is a little bit of a challenge because the car was built in the UK. So making sure everything interchanges and making the adjustments as needed. So we got that replaced. Flushed the intercooler system. We flushed the engine cooling system. What else did we do? Cut part of the driver toe board out and replace that for more room. I got the seat belts out, got all that stuff measured, and new belts being made. So those, I think those are shipping out either last Friday or today. And fire bottles were pulled. We got those reserviced. So all the fire bottles are up to date. Checked the parachute. And then we actually got the car fired up. So I had to put the starter back in and a bunch of other little piddly things. Got the car fired up, found some fuel line issues, and that's why I ordered new fuel lines. But car was fired up for the first time in 5 years. We have a bunch of information, kind of where we need to be before the middle of May for El Mirage. So kind of the goal now is I've got that welding class, which is a Friday and Saturday, leave Sunday morning bright and early, drive to California, hopefully be there by Tuesday, and then work on the car Tuesday, Wednesday, and then be on the El Mirage lake bed Thursday for some testing, and then race Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Why was this in for 5 years?
So the previous owner, he lives in the UK, and COVID happened, so he wasn't coming over to race, and then he'd had some other issues come up in life, and he just hasn't been back to race it. So it's just been sitting for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know it was made in the UK.
Yep. Yeah. So the previous owner lives in the UK, and they built it over there, and then they were shipping it over, and then it's been at Kiwi Steve's place in Brea, California, and he's been storing it and working on it for the previous owner.
It's really cool.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to get that thing out on the track.
Yeah, you said you hope to do 200. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do over 200. So I don't know if it'll happen at El Mirage. Doing 200 plus at El Mirage can be a real feat on dirt. So we'll see. I'm going to run the 5-mile course. So we'll have 5 miles and be able to run through on a third. If anything, I think it'll be possible at Bonneville. All 6 speed.
Do you have an English wheel?
I do lay down a number.
For an English wheel or a planching hammer, come to think of it, do you
have a wheeling machine and you're missing one big tool that I use a lot? I use a power hammer. So 99% of all my shaping work is going to be on a power hammer. There's a big difference between a power hammer and a planishing hammer. Power hammer uses springs to preload on the way up. So it takes the upper ram, and as it comes up, it loads that spring and it throws the upper tool post and gets you a lot of force to do shrinking and stretching. So the majority of all my shaping work is done on the power hammer, whether we're using thumbnail dies, linear dies, or radial dies. So here's my wheeling machine. I used to do all of my shaping work with a wheel, and now all I use it for is form only. I don't wheel anything other than when I do demos for classes. So I do have a wheel, I just don't use it for anything other than putting form in panels. And then this is the planishing hammer I use. So a planishing hammer is not spring loaded. They're usually an air motor, and they are very fast and light hits. So this is an original Milwaukee air planisher. And yeah, so again, most of the shaping work is going to be done on one of the power hammers, either the MH19 or the 1909 Pettengill #1. Any other questions? Because we're winding down for the day.
Yep, 5 minutes.
Yep, 5 minutes. So get those questions in, or you have to wait till next week, or maybe longer. You never know.
You know, these taillights, at first when you showed them to me, I was like, I don't know. But now they're really growing on me.
Yeah? Yeah, I remember how much flack I got when I first started clay modeling this side, and so many people were on Facebook and Instagram saying how terrible they were, and they're not traditional, and whatever else. And I'm like, you know what? The client likes them. Yeah. It's the client's idea, and I thought it would look good. And now that they're in metal,
they look good.
Everybody's like, oh, wow, It looks way better than I imagined it would. And that's why you always have to trust the process. You know, you can't jump in there and just say, I hate this because it looks funny in clay. Clay just looks weird because it's non-reflective. It's a weird color, but you just got to trust the process.
Can you show us the radius dies and linear dies?
Yep. So these are linear stretch dies in the Pettingill. And then I currently have linear dies in the MH37. We were doing a little bit more aggressive linear work yesterday. So linear tooling, it stretches on that line. And then here is the radial tooling. So we have, let's lay this to the side. So this is a flat, and then we go 36, 24, 12, 8, and 6 with a 1-inch flat. So each one, so this one's a 12, this has a 12-inch radius all the way across the top. And I'm sure this is going to open up all the questions into 12-inch radius, or do you mean 12-foot radius? Because every time I talk about radius tooling, people get all worked up over it. Just like when we were talking about radius tooling on the wheeling machine. But this is all radial, and then these are all the thumbnail dies. So I have a large thumbnail, mid-size, and a mini. And then here is all the radial tooling for the planishing hammer. And then we have some linear tooling for the planishing. And then there's other tools over there on the machine itself.
What are these used for?
What was that?
What are these used for?
They're just radius gauges or circle makers.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a 4-inch diameter. So if we need to check an inside radius or use it to lay out a radius, we can.
Yeah, those are really handy.
Yep, yeah, Carl at Make It Custom made those, and he brought me a set when he came down to do that class in October. And speaking of that, we've had a lot of interest in having Carl back, so I need to reach out to him. I messaged him the other day, I think on Instagram, and he said, let's make it happen. So hopefully, it might be November-ish, maybe December. We can see if we can get Carl back down here to do some more classes.
Okay, what would be an affordable power hammer for a small shop like mine?
Affordable is a relative term. I don't know what your budget is or what your shop space is. If you want to get a brand new number one, just the arms I think are about 15 grand, and then you'd have to buy tooling and a pedestal. Like a Yoder K90, they range anywhere from 40 to 100,000. You can get an MH19, I think they're around 25 to 30,000. And these are newer prices other than the Yoder since they don't make them. But you can find deals a lot. You could probably get a used MH19 for less than a new one, obviously. But you just have to find those. So
the Souza Shape-O-Matic Make It Custom has a video on it. The builder kit is 2,000 grand US money.
Yep. And you're going to be, I like Christian, and his hammer works, but it's more of a helve hammer, and it does do some shaping work, but I don't know how well it would do larger panel stuff. So you're going to be able to do smaller shrinking areas like motorcycle fenders and gas tanks and that kind of stuff. But I don't know big panel wise and aggressive shrinking how well it's going to do.
Which one did you have before?
I had the MH19, so it's a 19-inch throat versus a 37-inch throat, and I think it was only 6 foot tall. Mm-hmm. So, there's deals out there. You just kind of have to look, and it depends on what you're doing. A couple guys in the class, was a hot rod hammer by, I don't know if it's Eastwood or somebody else. I don't have any experience with those, so I'm not really all that sure how well they work either. I can only vouch for the machines that I've had here. And I've always had good luck with the Bailey power hammers and the Pettingill stuff.
You said 30 by 40.
Size-wise in your shop? Yeah. So, you should have enough room for a bigger hammer. I would say look into an MH19 or a PH28. So actually the power hammer version, it's pretty tall, but those are the cheaper of the brand new power hammers out there. And you can find good deals on used ones. You just have to kind of put the word out and track them down.
Well, that's the end of our live. It's 59 minutes and 40 seconds. So.
All right. So if you got last minute questions. So if you've got any questions, hop in there and let us know. If not, we're going to wrap it up. So you got 30 seconds to get those questions in. If not, save them for next week.
Thank you.
Yep. But while we're waiting on those questions to come in, I greatly appreciate you guys checking this out. Yeah, it means a lot. It helps everything in the shop. It gets us exposure, gives Dom ideas on stuff to film about. So we really appreciate you guys tuning into this and checking out the videos. Make sure to hit up the discussion. Is it a discussion? Or is that just the community where we post like questions and that kind of stuff?
Community posts.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for community posts. It really helps if you guys chime in, give us some feedback. That way we can keep producing the stuff that you guys want to see. And we're asking you questions because we're genuinely curious. So yeah, thank you guys so much for that. Keep an eye out for the Cleco tool holders and check out our web store for hats, shirts, socks, tools. We got all of that stuff in stock. So any last minute questions?
Got a $20 donation by Big Wig. Thanks. Have a cool one on me.
Yeah, well, thank you. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
What was that second power hammer again? The PH, I think.
Yeah, PH 28. So they have two different ones. So just make sure it's the power hammer, not the reciprocating PH 28. It's real tall. I think it's like 7.5 feet tall. But that's a good hammer. I've used them a bunch. So MH19, PH 28, or check out Hans at Pet and Gill Machine. And I think those are some of the more economical friendly machines to start with.
All right, well, that's it.
That's it. All right. So thank you guys so much for checking it out. Get questions together for next week. We plan to be here at Monday at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, we're going to get back to work and we will catch you guys next week.